I mean, I was in that corner sizing up the house, and I'm telling you, I got goosebumps. And I heard, leave.
The story you're going to learn about today is practically unknown even to this family's inner circle. As we've seen on other occasions, ancient places hold secrets which accumulate over the years, and these details that we don't know are surely the ones that trigger this series of supernatural episodes that really shake anyone. In a house located in a village in the interior of Buenos Aires, events really occurred that put a couple at risk. Moments that even with the participation of a priest did not leave them at peace. And what's more, to this day, what inhabits this house is there inside waiting for whoever is willing to challenge it. Before we continue, I want to let you know that we are going to leave aside the location of this house. We are only going to place it, as I said, in a small town in the interior of Buenos Aires. Thus, we respect its owners who surely are not to blame for what happens inside. Before we continue, I want to thank once again all those who collaborate with the channel day by day in whatever way. Without you, all this would not be possible. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you can, share this video to help me introduce new people to the channel. Friends, I welcome you to a new video. My name is Mariana, and this story I'm about to tell you happened with Frank, my partner, 13 years ago. Back then, we had been dating for a little while, and we made the decision to live together since he lived in another city and the distance was a bit difficult for us. So he managed to get a job in my town, and we were finally realizing our dream of living together. The problem we had was housing. As it happens to many, sometimes it's not easy to rent for two reasons: the price or the lack of rentals. But one morning, everything went perfect, and curiously, I found what we were looking for. I was buying the newspaper, and I see on a billboard to one side a rental notice. It was a house, and at an incredible price, practically half of what they were asking for elsewhere. While one always finds it suspicious when this happens, I still called to inquire. A super friendly lady answered me, who not only confirmed the price, but also that it was still available. She told me that the house had been her great-uncle's, and that for her it was too big, so she was living in a smaller apartment in the area, and also told me that if I wanted to go see it, that very Sunday was no problem because she was free. So that same afternoon, I coordinated with her to go see the house. When I entered, it greatly exceeded my expectations. It was a beautiful, old, sausage-like house as they used to be, very bright. The rooms were gigantic. The bathroom was newly restored. At the front, there was a place where a pizzeria was operating at that moment. And at the back, a huge yard with lemon trees, kumquats, some orange trees, flowers, grass. It really was a dream. There were only perhaps some maintenance touch-ups that the lady warned me about that we had no problem facing. I spoke with my partner that same day, and the next day we finalized the rental with this woman. We had officially rented the house, but we never imagined what was about to happen. The first thing we did before moving in was to start working on fixing the details that the house had to make it as good as possible, and that's when the first strange thing happened. We started painting a wooden paneling that the walls had with white synthetic, so it had to be dried from one day to the next between coats. When we went the next day, we found the freshly painted wood all marked, as if someone had rubbed in several areas. As if we had run our fingers over some parts. It was very strange, but we tried at that moment to find an answer, and we said that maybe one of the two of us hadn't noticed and had touched it, or that it could be the same old wood that for some reason took the paint differently in certain areas. The issue was that despite giving it a few coats and trying to make it impeccable, it was impossible. There would always appear one or more marks, and that's how we left it. A very important detail that I don't want to forget is about a wardrobe. Since we had just moved, the truth is that we were missing a lot of furniture to finish equipping the house, and so one morning while talking about this with
The owner?
she offered us a very old wardrobe that belonged to her grandparents and was stored right in the garage of the house. We accepted and placed it in our room. And as a joke, that day we named it the Narnia wardrobe because it was old and it reminded you of the one from
The movie?
From that first day we put it, every morning and without an explanation, the wardrobe would appear.
With a...
Or more doors open. I assure you that I was and am a very orderly person, so I knew that every night I left the wardrobe perfectly closed with the clothes folded inside. But it kept appearing open every morning. My husband checked everything from the level of the wardrobe to the hinges, and despite adjusting and verifying that everything was working well, its doors in the morning were open. We solved this in a simple way by buying some small safety latches that are usually placed so that children cannot open the doors or drawers. Since that day, the doors never opened again.
The second strange thing that happened to us, which we later discussed between the two of us, was that we spent a lot of time outside, both in summer and in winter. And all the talks that we started outside the house always ended well or with consensus. We are a couple that talks a lot and we get along very well. And inside the house we always fought. Outside it was a pleasant atmosphere, everything bloomed, everything grew. You put seeds of whatever you put and it grew. Inside it gives me goosebumps to say it. Something that overshadowed you, that crushed you, that drained your energy. I have a lot of goosebumps because I remember sitting in the garden drinking mate without looking inside the house, and as you saw that you can't see inside, one from afar, if there is sun you can't see inside the house. And to be in the background and feel that there was something watching us, not with good intentions. I felt that way, but I didn't tell him because we had just met and moved. It wasn't the right time to say such things. It seemed crazy. I want to clarify that we are a Catholic marriage and that from there our life, at least mine, changed forever. I later had several interviews with a priest to seek an explanation for everything that happened to us in there, which was quite intense.
Over time, we were able to get our household economy back on track, and we hired someone to help us with the cleaning. One afternoon, she mentioned something very curious to me. She tells me that many of the doors leading to the rooms were marked. I didn't understand at first what she was referring to, how or why, since we had cleaned and painted everything very recently. I told her it might be some mark that was left, but she tells me they are handprints and they are very clear. When she showed me, I confirmed that it was true. You could see hands, but not ours. In fact, they were small hands, like those of children. She told me not to worry, that she would clean them, and they were probably from previous tenants, but I knew full well that wasn't the case. Firstly, we left every door spotless, clean and painted. And secondly, they are very tall doors, so a child couldn't reach that spot while playing. He cleaned those marks and it was perfect, but just a few days later, he told me something that left me surprised.
2 or 3 days later, he tells me I'm not going to continue working here. But I ask him why. We got along very well. I paid him relatively well. I paid him what he deserved. He had his vacations. He was on the books. He tells me no since I just started, but something here isn't right. He says the hands keep appearing. The other day I was cleaning the bathroom and I felt something pulling at it. She was a Jehovah's Witness. She always wore skirts, always. She says she felt something tugging at her skirt, like a child pulling on it. I said, well, no. I can't force you to keep working. In fact, I recommended it to a friend. My friend's thing was never a problem and she continues to work to this day. We never talked about the subject again. She never brought it up again, but I really felt that she left the place scared.
At that moment, working in the hospital during a shift, I found myself
A little dog.
abandoned. I decided to adopt her, and it was a new sign that something bad inhabited the house. From the first day I brought her, there was no way she would enter the house. She didn't even want to peek in. At first, I imagined that being a dog used to being on the street for a long time. That was why. But no, she felt or saw that something bad was inside. We tried to get her in from all sides, from the front, through the garage, from the back, and she didn't want to either. There were many times she would stay at the threshold of the door, crying. She wanted to be with us, but she didn't dare to come in, so there wasn't much choice, and she stayed in the backyard. From that moment, we started to talk with my husband a little more seriously about this situation. At least I had started to suspect that something bad was happening. First the issue with the paint, then the little hands that appeared, the wardrobe door, and now the issue with the dog that was behaving very, very strangely. And days later, while checking and cleaning the house a bit, I found something super strange.
So, then one day while looking at the house, I found a small star stuck on like a sticker stuck on a small window. It was a strange little window. It was a window that was down low. That's why maybe I had never paid attention to it. I don't know. It was down low at a height where there might have been a basement. I don't know. And it was a pentagram. So I took a picture of it, sent it to a friend who is a priest, and he asked me, "Where are you?" I told him I didn't know what was stuck on my house. He said it's something used in cults. To protect themselves from the devil, not to invite him, it was stuck on the outside of the house, like don't come in here, or something like that, he explained to me. I was because I had been suspecting that something was going on, and then I had an idea that they say was very bad of tearing it off, cleaning it with steel wool and removing it.
Since that day when I took that image out, things, I assure you, started to open the door. Not the one we had jammed, but the other one that had never done it before. Absolutely every night it would open for no reason. I even taped it up to prevent it from doing so, and many times it would also appear open. I couldn't stand this anymore and spoke with the house owner to ask her to remove the wardrobe. We could already buy our own, and I really didn't want that piece of furniture in the house. I knew something was wrong with it, and at that point I was pretty much sure. His response was, "Please put it back in the garage of the house like it was before." We didn't have much of a choice, and we did it. I want to clarify that up until that moment my husband had not experienced anything paranormal, and one night when I had to stay on guard, he was left alone at home. When I arrived in the morning, I found him asleep on the living room couch. I wake him up and ask him why he was sleeping there. His answer to me,
He surprised me, saying, "I didn't know what happened to him last night. He was lying down under a feather duvet." By the way, we sold all the furniture from that house at an auction, not wanting to keep any of it. "I felt you had come back and were lying beside me." "The one with the duvet," I said. "Honey, what happened? Did you finish the shift early?" "The one with the duvet?" I said. "Honey, what happened? Did you finish the shift early?" I fell asleep. When I woke up to use the bathroom, no one was next to me. I got so scared and frightened that I came to sleep in the dining room. There we hugged each other and cried like crazy because we realized that something was really happening.
That same afternoon my sister came home to have some mates, and we told her what was happening to us. In fact, she herself noticed that we were somewhat worried and asked us how we were doing. After talking for a while, she confessed to us that a few weeks ago, while she was at home one afternoon, when we had given her permission to stay and study, something horrible happened to her. While she was in the living room studying, just like that, the Virgin of San Nicholas that she had on a piece of furniture flew into the middle of the room. She had had that Virgin for a long time and had brought it from San Nicholas with holy water, and from that moment on, it had accompanied her.
My sister claims she was studying. Although we are a Catholic family, I want to clarify that she doesn't believe in anything at all. It was very strange. It was on the shelf, and automatically when I turned around, they threw it on top of me. I gathered all my notes and left. They threw it on top of me. I gathered all my notes and left. I didn't want to tell them because it went against my beliefs that she doesn't believe in anything, so it was like something that was happening to her so strange that she said, "I'm going crazy, I'm going to this house, everything closed," and she left, and the dog looked at me with a sad face. We could never make the dog gain weight, and she was always in the garden, always.
In the month of August, my sister had to rehearse with her band for an event and asked us to lend her the house to be able to do it as we were going to go out for a walk that weekend. We didn't have any again. Everything messy. On the table were the boxes again. We found everything messy. On the table were the pizza boxes, the glasses. Everything was a mess. Quite angry, I called my sister and asked her to explain why she had left everything in such a mess at home. And she told me that while they were eating the pizzas, the drums started to sound very loud. Not once, but many times the drums started to sound very loud. Not once, but many times. Something was hitting it insistently, and almost everyone at the same time. It seemed impossible, but it occurred exactly as he described. Everyone ran out, locked up, and didn't dare to return. Do you know what was the strangest thing about all this, and that I've seen in other stories on the channel? That despite going through very ugly situations, and I wanted to stay there, I didn't want to leave the house.
My condition kept deteriorating. I lost weight, became moody, and felt unwell, despite being a previously cheerful, fun person with many friends. So I said, well, I'm gonna do a cleaning. I looked for a couple of cleaning rituals on the internet and started doing them by praying the Hail Mary Creed. When I get to the corner where that sticker was, I was going with a candle and burning incense. I was reciting the creed and something clearly told me, leave. I mean, I was in that corner smudging the house, and I tell you, today I have goosebumps, and I heard, leave.
It was so clear and so ugly how I heard it that it really convinced me we had to leave.
From the house?
I talked it over with my partner, told them everything that happened, and added to start looking for a solution and leave as soon as possible. We searched for a house to move into but found nothing in town. The days went by and we were still living there. Until one morning something happened that really was the last straw, because we understood that what inhabited the house was dangerous. I woke up with my husband, and when he lifted my nightgown, he saw that my entire back was injured with scratches. That same morning I called the owner. I told her everything that was happening in the house, what we were going through, and also my sister with her friends, but she immediately denied that this had been happening in the house before. She completely washed her hands of the situation. Since we couldn't find a house and we had to leave urgently from there, I made the decision to cross to the newspaper stand that we had right in front and ask them to put up a small sign looking for a house to rent. At that moment, talking to the lady who was serving, she tells me that we were the ones who lasted the longest. No one had stayed that long in that house, and quite a few tenants had already passed through the place. We chatted a bit more, and she also told me that the rumors in the neighborhood were varied, but many found out that strange things were done in this house. In fact, at one point, a kind of sect was set up for a while. The truth is that we didn't want to be there anymore, so we moved to my parents' place until we could find a rental, and we left the house. But we still had rental days left, and it was useful for us to keep the furniture and some things while we moved them to the house to say goodbye, and also to what was inside there. And on the last day, I say to what was there.
Inside, and on the last day, I tell my husband, let me say goodbye to the house and to whatever is in it. I had already spoken with a priest, and he had told me what happened is not good, because what attacks you is not good. He explained to me he is a priest from the line of exorcist priests who is in the diocese of Luján de Cuyo in Maipo. He told me everything that attacks what has the possibility to attack you, or evil and diabolical, because that's why it has that possibility. Between evil and diabolical, because that's why it has that possibility.
I entered the house but not scared. I assure you I was furious. You know why? Because I really liked the place. As I told you at the beginning, it was a real dream, the house, and I couldn't stand that this entity was kicking us out in this way. I went to the garage, stood in front of this wardrobe, and started hitting the doors, opening and closing them while screaming and insulting this entity. I was really angry, and I don't know why, but I was sure that this wardrobe had something to do with it. After a little while and having vented, to put it in some way, time passed, and the drawers, and as I turned to leave, absolutely all of them. The doors and drawers of the wardrobe opened in a second and very aggressively, making a noise as they opened and closed on their own. This scene was like something out of a movie, opening and closing on their own. This scene was straight out of a horror movie, I can assure you. That's where our story in this house ended. I got out as fast as I could, handed over the key, and we never went back in.
Over the years, the key and we never returned. Over the years, we got married, had children. It just so happens that a friend of my sister, a colleague at that time, my sister had already graduated, the one who studied at my house. And she says, you know, you're living in the same place I'm about to leave. Why? She says, because things happen in that house I'm about to leave. Why? She says, because strange things happen in that house. One day I was sleeping and someone lay down next to me. I used a wardrobe that the door would always open and hands would appear. Exactly the same thing happened to her, perhaps with less level of violence because she left earlier than what happened to us. That deep down even made me feel calm because I said, deep down it even made me feel calm because I said that something is clearly in that house. Today it is closed, no one rents it anymore. The word has spread quite a bit in the town that something is happening. Nobody knows. Well, those who set up a shop there generally fail, those who set up a shop there generally fail, which I mentioned at the start of the audio. Changed us, and especially me, and it changed me in belief. I became a much more believing person, and although before I was Catholic, now I am much more practicing because I know that these things happen. They happen to me. They can happen, and they are there. They are there. I don't know if waiting or in a place, but I think the only protection, I prayed every night. And it was the only protection. I prayed every night. And it was that I was forgetting was to the
few days that I was forgetting. It was a few days that I did that cleaning ritual, that I downloaded from the internet. I realized that it had become more aggressive, as I told you, and one day being in the laundry room. A shelf that we had for all the cleaning stuff fell on me. The most curious thing was that this shelf was anchored to the wall so that this would not happen. It threw it on top of me. Without a doubt, this case, friends, it threw it on top of me. Without a doubt, this case, friends, is one of the most impressive we have known. I would like to know what you think about this that happened. Thanks for reaching the end of this video. I send a big hug to all.
Another thing I forgot to tell you, full of cockroaches. I couldn't fight them. I came to have full of cockroaches. I couldn't fight them. I came to have no Buenos Aires where this happened. It's a town where no Buenos Aires where this happened. It's a town where there's no cockroach invasion. It wasn't a building. It was full to the bag. I called the only pest control that was in the city to the bag. I called the only pest control that was in the city. In the little town, because it's not a city. It just says, no, I'm not going to that house, Mom. Why does he say, no, I'm not going to that house, Mom? Why? Since 3 tenants have called about the impossible bug infestation. There were spiders, there were ants. It's impossible to combat the bugs there. There were spiders, there were ants, there was a super hysterical cleaning person. So I can assure you that she didn't leave a bit of food and it was filled with bugs. It was filled with bugs. You would come back from the weekend if you went somewhere full of bugs. Thank you.